Today I've got more features that you guys, the F1 community, including myself, want to see added to the completely reimagined F1 game coming in 2027, so let's get straight into it. First things first, F1 games desperately need a more immersive Paddock experience. The racing can feel amazing, but sometimes everything outside the track feels weirdly lifeless. Fans just don't want the driving experience anymore, they want the full Formula 1 experience. Let us walk through the paddock, let us interact with engineers, let us see media scrums, photographers, mechanics rushing around, team hospitality areas, make the race weekends actually feel alive. Imagine venues like Monaco and Las Vegas actually feeling like a massive sporting spectacle rather than just a casual Grand Prix weekend. Those little presentation details matter way more than people think, and Formula 1 fans notice everything. One of the best examples of this kind of vision is a project currently being developed by Gekkai Studios called Formula Circus. From what they've shown so far, the game focuses heavily on immersion, atmosphere, paddock freedom, and making players feel like they're actually living the life of a Formula 1 driver. And considering the project is still in early development, and with investment from content creator Arav, it generally looks incredibly promising. That level of immersion is exactly what future F1 games should be aiming for. If F1 27 truly wants to feel next generation, every single track on the calendar should be fully laser scanned. Now, to be fair, recent F1 games have already started moving in the right direction. Tracks like Bahrain, Miami, Melbourne, Suzuka and Imola have received updated LiDAR scans in recent titles, but by 2027 this needs to become the standard for every circuit, because visually accurate tracks are one thing, but tracks that actually feel accurate when driving are something completely different. From every bump, curb, elevation change, braking zone, down to millimetre level accuracy, those details matter massively. The difference between a good corner and a perfect corner can come down to how aggressively you attack a curb or how the car reacts over a bump under braking. If the surface isn't accurate, the entire driving experience feels less believable, and that is the kind of immersion that separates a racing game from a proper simulator. One thing the F1 games still don't capture properly is the chaos and unpredictability of pit stops. Right now, pit stops feel way too perfect, too scripted, too safe, and that removes one of the biggest tension points in real Formula 1. Now, credit where it's due, F1 22 introducing pit stop errors into career mode was actually a really solid addition. Seeing your crew struggle with a tyre change and lose a few seconds added tension instantly, but the system still felt far too limited. In F1 27, these moments should be way more dynamic, because pit stops can completely change the outcome of a Grand Prix, and those unpredictable moments create some of the most memorable drama in F1. Imagine leading and then losing the race because your rear tyre won't come off, or imagine a late safety car where the rain is on the way and every team dives into the pits at once and chaos breaks out with teams not ready, completely changing the outcome of the race. And the games need more of that unpredictability. Of course, pit crew mistakes shouldn't happen constantly or feel unfair unless you're Ferrari, but they should happen often enough that every pit stop feels stressful instead of just automatic. Right now you can have a massive 200mph crash and then show up perfectly fine on the grid next weekend like nothing had happened, but in real F1, serious crashes can affect entire seasons. So imagine this, if a player suffers a huge impact, the game could use a G-force system to determine injury severity, and if the crash exceeds a dangerous threshold, you might actually be forced to miss a few races while recovering. Suddenly every risky overtake matters more, every wet weather mistake becomes more terrifying, and balancing aggression with survival becomes a real part of the experience. Plus, think about the storytelling opportunities. Imagine missing 2 races during a title fight and losing the championship because of that one massive mistake. That would create genuine emotional moments in career mode that could lead to things such as team relationships all the way to contract negotiations. So make us feel real consequences for our mistakes, as this makes the entire game become more intense than ever before. Now, this is possibly the most ambitious feature of all, an in-game track builder. Honestly, this could completely change the future of F1 games forever if this was to be added, because instead of only being drivers, players could become circuit designers too. Again, this is something projects like Formula Circus are already experimenting with, giving players the freedom to create completely custom circuits and layouts. Even games like the Crew Motorfest introduced a track force to let players build and share experiences, so imagine that creativity combined with the Formula 1 fans. From creating realistic FIA-style circuits to completely chaotic fantasy tracks, and the replay value would become almost endless. Instead of waiting for developers to release new tracks every year, the community would generate fresh content constantly. Some people would build realistic Grand Prix venues, others would create absolutely nightmare design purely for chaos, and both would be amazing. Ultimately, a track builder would make F1 games more creative, more social, and far more long-lasting, because instead of racing the same circuits forever, players could shape their own Formula 1 world. Now, I have already spoken about the damage model earlier in this series, but honestly I think realistic barrier physics deserve their own section entirely, because right now crashes in the F1 game still don't always feel believable. You can hit a wall at ridiculous speed and sometimes it just feels like the car's bouncing off a rubber block. Improved barrier physics would completely change the feeling of racing, where drivers race millimetres away from walls at insane speeds. Players would have to think more carefully about risk versus reward, because suddenly suspension damage becomes realistic, debris spread executed properly across the circuit, heavy crashes become race ending and mistakes actually feel costly. That added tension would make qualifying laps, wet races and wheel-to-wheel battles so much more intense. That would naturally encourage smarter, cleaner and more realistic driving. But I highly doubt that. Most importantly though, realistic barrier physics would help create the true atmosphere of F1 and make the player feel like he's experienced what the drivers would experience in that exact crash or scenario, and that is part of what makes the sport so exciting, is knowing how little room there is for error. An infinite career mode would make F1 games feel less like a mode of an expiration date and more like a living, breathing motorsport world. One of the best parts of racing games is building a long-term legacy, taking a team from the back of the grid to championship glory, discovering young drivers, creating rivalries, watching the sport evolve over time. But right when you become fully invested in the team and your story, the career mode ends, and honestly that kills the immersion. With an infinite career mode you can decide when it's time to retire, not the game. If you want to stop after winning a few championships, you can. If you want to race for over 20 seasons, similar to Fernando Alonso currently, you can do that too. As crazy as it sounds, the most important thing is giving players the choice. And imagine the possibilities 15 or 20 seasons into a save. You could race for every single team on the grid before finally calling it quits. And you think the current driver moves can get chaotic in the F1 games? Imagine loading into a season seeing an entire grid of former F2 and F3 drivers because every current F1 driver has retired. You could basically create your own Fernando Alonso simulator, still racing while the rest of the grid is made up of drivers who grew up watching you compete. It could even create incredible long-term storylines. Imagine taking a team from last place to championship winners, only for a massive regulation change to send them right back to the bottom, leaving you with a choice of do you leave the team or do you stay to rebuild them all over again. That's the kind of storytelling F1 games are missing. An infinite career mode wouldn't just add more seasons, it would transform F1 games into a true motorsport simulation. And that's why the players deserve an F1 world that can shape the future of F1 as long as they want. So if F1 27 is a complete reimagining of the franchise, and if developers can finally combine incredible gameplay with real immersion, F1 27 could generally become the Formula 1 game fans have dreamed about for years. And that's exactly why I made this series, to make sure you guys, F1 game community's voices were being heard, because it's a very crucial time for the F1 game franchise and we could genuinely shape the future of installments to come. So now I want to hear from you guys. What do you want to see in F1 27? What crucial features do you believe should be in an F1 game? Please drop them in the comments below and I will consider them for future ideas in this series. If you want to see more of this series as well, be sure to watch the previous parts I've already done in this series and subscribe, because we've got more of this type of content coming to the channel very, very soon. Thanks for watching guys, I'll see you in my next video.